Good afternoon, Legacy Bible Church. It is just me, all by myself, no Stephen today. And sometimes when it's just me by myself, I might not even come on. But today, I did want to just come on by myself and just share a few of my thoughts that I had that I was sharing with Stephen this morning. And when I found out he wasn't going to be able to broadcast, I didn't want to just not show up and say anything. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to share what's on my mind and my heart. And today, that is the authors of the Bible. And what I was sharing with Stephen this morning was when I listened to him teach on Sunday mornings, or even when we're sitting here together, he brings a perspective that I'm not used to. So I grew up in the church. I was in Sunday school. I learned all the Bible stories. And with that, when I learned all the Bible stories, you thought about, well, for me, I don't know about everybody, but for me, I thought about the authors of the Bible. They were just so far off. They weren't relatable. These beings out there that wrote the Bible, and they must have been really, really special to write the Bible. Possibly, I mean, I knew they were actually humans, but possibly just this supernatural empowerment that could write the Bible and had more godliness, more holiness than me, that they were just something special. And so I never thought about the writers just as people, as humans. Um, we know Jesus walked this earth as fully God and fully human, but the authors walk this earth just fully human. And so that got me thinking last week and last Wednesday, and then this Sunday when Stephen was teaching. So last Wednesday, when we talked about Peter walking on water, and we talked about how when that story was written, the other Matthew, Mark, Luke, so three of them, two of them don't have that story. Only one does. And Stephen talked about the possibility that the reason why they were able to write that part in there was because Peter had already been, I just lost the word. Peter had already died. And that they didn't want to, while he was alive, muddy his name. So after he died, they could include that story to show that he walked away from the faith and then came back. And so when he said that, I was thinking, these authors were sitting there writing and thinking about what was going on in their time and considering people around them. And then this Sunday, he was talking about how Luke was very thoughtful when he wrote about Paul being martyred almost. He it says left for dead, but Stephen said, there's a possibility that he did die, and they did rally around him and pray over him, and he was rose from the dead. But they didn't ever want to. They wanted to distinguish between Jesus being raising from the dead and Peter, not to ever make it look like Peter and Jesus were on equal terms. And so they had to think about that. So I was just talking to him this morning, saying, the authors, they had to think. They took their time. They thought it wasn't just a magical pen in their hand and it was just writing for them. They had to think, and they thought about what was around them, what was taking place, the danger in writing words that could be held against them. And then the brilliance of these men, for instance, Paul, who was brilliant, had the Torah probably memorized and knew it backwards and forwards, was discipled by Jesus, by the Spirit, before he came and started teaching. These weren't just men that were walking around with notepads around their neck, taking notes and writing these notes. And then at the same time, these men were writing for what was going on then. They were not writing like God can look, and he is outside of time, and he's outside of us looking, and he can see these things. These men were not. So they were not writing these words based on Sarah in 2023. They were writing for their situation, for what was happening in that time period. And so when we look at the Bible and we start understanding the Bible, if you are not viewing the Bible through the two-dimensional plan of salvation, through that lens, knowing that we have a near purpose of redemption, an end purpose of participating with Jesus by worshiping in spirit and truth, and that is the end purpose, that is the realm of sanctification, healing, righteousness. If you're not looking at it through that, then you can kind of then you might read the Bible and think, well, how does this pertain to me? The, women not cutting their hair, wearing jewelry. That's just some of the things. The washing of the feet. Stephen has a whole teaching on what washing feet means. But if you're just reading it through just the very simple lens of redemption, not the two-dimensional salvation plan, then you might try to put those things literally here for us in 2023 when we have different customs and different things. But if you're looking at the Bible through the two-dimensional salvation plan of God, then everything they talk about still applies. You don't have to say, well, so many people take different things from the Bible. People who want to be very religious and very regimental on their instructions, like, well, we're going to follow everything except this doesn't apply and this doesn't apply because that was a different time period. Okay, but the Bible does apply because it talks about one thing. The New Testament addresses one thing, and that is participating with Jesus in the end purpose plan of God. So that was just kind of my thoughts today that I wanted to share, that the authors did have an audience and they did have a purpose in writing, and it was very much their purpose was for that time. I can't say for sure, but I do not think that they were thinking that they were writing for someone who would be sitting in a house behind a computer in 2023, because I'm pretty sure they thought things were going to be over fast in that time. And they were writing for those people at that time in that moment. But everything still applies when you look at it through the two-dimensional plan of Jesus Christ. And not only does everything apply from the New Testament to now, but it applies for all of us around the world. Sometimes when you listen to teachings and preachers, the stuff they say might apply for me in America in the comfort of my home, but does it apply for the starving mother in Africa who's trying to feed her baby? Or for the Christians being persecuted in other countries? Or someone just in a different lifestyle than me? Yes, it does apply, because it all points to one thing. Not your list, not your to-dos, not your 15 ways to work out your salvation, but it applies, it is meant for one thing. It points to one thing, and that's praying in the Spirit. And that is the most freeing thing as a believer, to know there's one thing that God expects, demands, wants from me. And so that was just my thoughts today on the New Testament authors. They were people. They didn't have a magic pen. They didn't have magic words in their head. They had a purpose. They had a plan. They had an audience. They intellect is just so far beyond what a lot of us are, because a lot of the scriptures or teachings are dumbed down. I'll just say it, dumbed down for Christians these days. But they were deep intellectuals, learners, pursuers of truth, passionate about the truth. And it's just interesting when you think about the scriptures. they're that light. So that's what I wanted to come on here and share. And I hope that reaches somebody today, and I hope somebody can relate with me and kind of understand what I was thinking about. And as always, if you have any questions, please send us an email, steve.goodall@lbcdfw.org, sarah.cobb@lbcdfw.org, and robin.goodall@lbcdfw.org. And we would love to chat with you. We would love to hear your questions. Nothing's off the table here. So please reach out anytime you have a thought or a question or just want to chat. And you have a blessed day.